Hello, my name is Samuel Cockings, writer and director of Stargate Universe Distant Hope.
And now, you might know me from Treck Yards, the Star web series.
Broadcasting from the depths of outer space.
Hello, I'm alive. I don't know what's going on.
By your command.
Fascinating.
God damn you all to hell!
It's the Solar Sci-Fi Podcast. This is episode 46 of the Solar One Sci-Fi Podcast. Michael Ball, Martin Fowler are on the show once again to talk about anything sci-fi related. And this is the point where I actually introduce a drum roll. We have got a very special guest this week. I'm very surprised and very delighted that we have one half of Treck Yards. We have Samuel Cockings with us. Hello, Samuel.
Hi, well, I was told there's a special guest here, but it's just me. Where's the guest? Do I get to see the guest as well, or is it just... No?
He's on later. Okay. He's hiding behind. First of all, thank you for coming on. How are you doing?
I'm okay. It's been every day's a busy day, but working on fan films and Treck Yards and dealing with people throughout the world, it's
yeah, you're a man in much need. Sort of people are always after you for certain things.
And hey, you got me, so congrats.
I know. Well, thank you. And this is like I said, it's a real sort of feather in the cap for us. So thank you for coming on. We are going to be talking a bit about your background. I've got some information on you from the Internet Movie Database, which is quite interesting. So I'm sure we can share some of that. And our focus of this week is going to be Star Trek Discovery, because of course it's coming back this week.
It's 3 days, more or less.
Yeah, it's in the UK on Friday, I think. It's in the US on Thursday.
Yes.
So
Yes, we actually get this show as opposed to the last 10 weeks of Lower Decks.
yes, and actually we'll also ask you about that, because we've just finished watching. Well, I've seen them all. I don't know if you've seen them all yet, Martin, so we might not be too spoilery.
6 at the moment.
Okay.
I know, but I've got a massive backlog of stuff to watch, and this weekend I'm gonna sort of get in there and I'm gonna burn it off.
Well, what I'll say is we won't say too many spoilers because you've not seen it, but the last 2 episodes I thought were fantastic. Some real surprises. Stay away from YouTube if you can about reviews of Lower Decks, because there were some big surprises which I was really pleased. And I saw some of the Treck Yards, some of your reviews about certain aspects of the last episode, which were great. And it certainly was interesting to see what you were doing, but we can't say too much in front of Martin. So catch up soon.
Whatever you want, I'm still going to watch it.
Well,
you say whatever you want. I'm not going to give anybody a guilt trip if you tell me what happened.
Oh, well, okay. All right. Well, let's be honest then. 2 actors from Star Trek Return, which were of course William Riker and Councillor Troy,
yes,
on the Titan, which was fantastic. So the Titan.
Oh, you get to see the Titan.
Yeah. So now it's officially a canon ship now.
Lunar class, isn't it?
Yeah, so I was certainly delighted with that, and I saw.
But that's all you should say, though. I feel that's definitely.
Yeah, okay. Because
what's the Q episode then?
Wait and see.
Yeah, I think Samuel's right. I think you're aware of it. Let's not spoil it for you, because otherwise, you've got to have some surprises, haven't you?
It's like the designer of the Titan, who I'm friends with, Sean Turanjo, posted a couple of hours in. Oh, the Titan! And I was like, I woke up. Shit. Now I know. But luckily, I didn't know how much was in it. So that was I knew it.
Yeah.
And then I was pleasantly surprised. So at least. It's like I was spoiled about 25 minutes from watching it, the Enterprise appearing in Discovery Season 1.
Yeah.
And Yoda in Last Jedi. It's like, for God's sake, these big things.
Yeah, I'm like
the
that.
day of watching it.
It's so annoying.
Everything else.
It is so annoying. Yeah, absolutely. It's really, like you try so hard to stay away from the internet and stuff, but something like somebody doing a Facebook post or some link and it pops up and there's an image and damn, I missed. But it doesn't matter. I mean, that's part of the nature of the.
It's all sneaky, you know.
It's the nature of the. I mean, when I was growing up, we used to have things like TV Zone magazine and stuff, and so you used to get your sci-fi sort of news fix once a month. I'm showing my age now. SFX, that sort of stuff. Yeah. And now you just log on and it's all there.
And there's also, I remember when I watched Intramo Darkly on Enterprise, it was right at the end of the show's run, and I had no idea that was coming, and so I remember sitting down and being like, oh my god, this mirror. Oh my
Yeah.
god, this is TOS.
Yeah, I will like
I
that.
had no clue.
I mean, that
And
was
I knew
just...
previous ones that season. That one I had nothing, and it was the best surprise I've had for Trek
Well,
for 20 years.
What was so clever about that episode was it was actually technically it was a mirror universe, and it was also a sequel in a prequel series. It was the way they did it with the Define. It was just
magnificent.
yeah, absolutely.
Very nice how it was connected.
I love Enterprise. I thought Enterprise was. It's such a shame that it got cancelled just when it was going to hit that kind of Warp 9 kind of gear kind of thing, the sort of top, and it was really brewing up because I like the the season 3 arc. And the season 4 with things like the Romulans getting involved and stuff, it really was. I loved it. Such a shame.
A lot of my friends, they weren't big fans of Zindy out. They thought it went on too long. I didn't mind it.
I quite liked it. I liked it myself. It felt more arced, like some of these other series that we watched, like Battlestar or something.
Unfortunately, that obviously full 22, 24 episodes, you get a lot more time. It was clearly fully designed, fully scripted before they started filming.
Absolutely, it was thought through.
And then you compare it to how Discovery, Picard, and Discovery 2 did the 12 episodes, and you're like, no, they did not plan this throughout.
It's more like a juggling act, isn't it? They're like juggling with a load of ideas, and whatever falls down first or something is what they'll grab at.
Well,
and it's strange.
It's like,
so
it's
strange.
like Star Trek Discovery's like running up the M1 at 100 miles an hour. Some episodes, isn't it? You know, I love it, but it's so fast and it in there, isn't it? And lens flares.
I think it's strange because we are going to focus about this, but for me, Star Trek, it doesn't have to be all explosion. I love a good space battle, believe me, and I am a ship guy. I know that obviously Sam is, but it's not just that. That is like the icing on the top. It's got to be a grounded, thought-provoking story about humanity and philosophy and all the other things. And like I said, with Discovery, there are some issues which we will talk about. Let's let go into the sci-fi news if that's okay with you two, and then we'll go from there and obviously hear a little bit more from the commander.
News at the moment. I'm winging it.
Okay, well, let me just hit the jingle. Here we go.
Working.
So the sci-fi news. Okay, so from my point of view, I've heard that there are some more rumours that Doctor Who is sort of beginning filming for season 13. There's been some reports that there's been 1 or 2 places. Nothing confirmed yet by the BBC, but it is hopefully looking more likely that they'll be at least able to get into production before the end of 2020. Do you two think that will happen, or do you think they're going to actually put more delays on that?
I don't know. With what's going on at the moment, it could be. I think end of next year it'll be on.
Yeah,
it's just this year. I mean, look at Orville. It's like how many they've only made so many episodes, haven't they? And it's all just been. Everything's just gone down the toilet at the moment. Everything's stopped.
I mean, we're huge fans of the Orville. I mean, you liked it, didn't you, Samuel? I think you quite like the series.
Yeah, brilliant.
And it's such a shame that apparently they did about 6 episodes filming. And then, of course, I think that the way...
Hard stop, yeah.
Yeah, but in the nature of the way they did it, they couldn't even release the first half because they don't film it in a linear order. So they could have filmed episodes 1, 3 and 5 or 9 or something. So they couldn't even get half the season out, which is a great shame. But yeah, it's just such a shame. Any news do anybody know about obviously Picard filming season 2, Star Trek Strange New Worlds?
Janeway, and it's rumoured Cisco could be. It's looking like Cisco could be. I've been reading this week.
Okay, I know that apparently Kate Mulgrew is going to be in the series Star Trek Prodigy, the child-based series.
Now, the problem with all this stuff, guys, is that a rumour can literally be anybody with an unknown emailing any site saying, I've got news.
Yeah.
Yes.
Most rumours are false. That's by the very nature of them. They're inventing things, even if they mean well. Obviously, Trek Yards have been handed rumours, absurd rumours for years, and we only report things we know are true.
Yeah,
That's
you're
why
very
we don't
good.
report much,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
What's the point? We're not a clickbait channel. Mulgrew is amazing. Makes a lot of sense. And it gives us a lot of hope that will be a more of a real show. You can have a kids. I said this on our recent video. There's two differences between making a kids show or even kids movies. One is aimed directly at kids with kid level intelligence, story, thematic. And while your kid may enjoy it, once they grow up to be 10 years later, they might look back and say, "Oh God, why did I like this?" And adults will say, "Oh God, why am I watching this?" / that's okay. Or you make it a good story, good characters, good development. Less X-ray, obviously. Balance it more for the kid side of the fence, but don't limit it, because then it'll have this broad. I mean, think of Disney films; they are all ages, at least the old ones.
Yes.
And yet they are meant to be.
Yeah, they are
family
kids films. You have to do that. So a kids show, just make it a real show with a younger cast, as in, you know, everyone's an ensign first year of the academy. Makes sense, great, they're younger. That's already enough of a kids show dynamic.
Yeah.
In terms of Cisco, you know, Avery Brooks has not acted in a lot of
long
years.
time. Yeah, long time.
One of those last things was literally Star Trek Legacy, the voiceover in 2007. So he is, for all intents and purposes, retired.
Yeah, he's retired.
And his mental state is not the strongest of all the people.
Oh, really?
I wasn't aware of that.
I get why it makes sense to do clickbait. We've had Picard. It was we've got Janeway. Hey, it could be great. Cisco's the natural next one. But I would be strongly skeptical of that.
Yeah.
Beyond maybe a voiceover. I mean, that's a lot easier to do, which would be fine. But you know, and give us a good story, guys. Build up your shows first, and then make us excited about like Lower Decks. Bring those two in at the end. You built up a show. You brought them in. Perfect.
Yeah.
Obviously, if Avery Brooks then Lower Decks, well, he's an ascended being, so that wouldn't really work. But
no,
you know what I mean. You could do it.
That's true. Yeah.
But also, he's a sort of character. Have him be done. You know, he's a prophet. That's the end of the story. That's fine. You know, where can you go from?
Yeah. Well, that's it. He's ascended to the other level, aren't they? Really now. And...
Yeah.
One thing that makes me fear, though, I mean, for me, Picard, in some ways, it's sort of slightly smeared my appreciation of 24th century Star Trek. I mean, it was such a change. You know, I always thought that humanity, and I said this to you, Martin, that, you know, things like swearing and the way that they act in the 24th century, it's more sort of evolved from our sort of living these days. But when it came back, it just felt like the 24th century people were just not the people that we'd seen in the 24th century series. And I, you know, it's I'm worried that when they make sort of new things, like we have like Icheb, what happened to him on Picard and stuff like that, and Seven's change in personality from Voyager, you know, I'm a bit sort of nervous about what they're coming out with next. You know what I mean? I don't know if.
Well, luckily, Janeway's on the kids' shows, which is more like to be nice.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like say like my old man, he like watched the the 60s one, and that's his Star Trek, and then like. Every generation, when they bring something like a Doctor or whatever, it becomes their thing. I mean, there'll be a whole generation where Discovery is their Star Trek. It will be their Star Trek.
And I will agree with that, but there's a difference, and we talked about this as well on Trek recently. TOS, TNG, less extent Voyager, certainly less extent DS9, a little bit of Enterprise. TOS and TNG, they inspired people.
Yeah.
They were positive, uplifting. They moved. How many engineers have told Nichelle Nichols to her face, "I'm because of you," etc.
I've got this career and it's changed my life forever. Exactly.
Discovery is not inspiring in any way. It might be more on the dramatic spectrum, but it will not stand that test of time. Maybe more as I liked it, but no one's going to think, "Oh, I want to be a universe murderer," or etc.
Yes,
or I like science because Spock said it in a silly way.
Yeah,
it's a different sort of concept.
I mean, I've always thought
to become a doctor and stuff like that. And it's not only that, it's the original stories as well. You didn't get a lot of... With Discovery, I love Discovery, but there was no... How do you say it? Like, where you watch Next Gen, there were episodes where next day you would have worked, someone said, like the Generations episode, First Contact, where they did the reverse, where Riker gets caught on that planet.
You just reviewed.
There was so much in that, and people talked about it. Yeah. You don't get that with Discovery. You don't get that.
Well, it's a binge show. You watch it once, maybe twice, and you don't go back.
You don't exactly, and that's the nature of the way it's done. Yeah,
and
exactly.
And also, we all know the fact they massively rewrote the show during production.
Yes, it's in mid production as it went on. It wasn't like, as you said before, how as Enterprise, it had a proper thought out 24, 26 episode arc where it's all done and it was all filmed and it was all properly decided, rather than they started off with an idea and all the writers left and people got sacked, and they had to sort of pick up the pieces and just steer the show literally from 1 month to the next. Hopefully some of it will stick.
So you've got to give them credit then for it turning out to be an okay show, but I mean, no one could say that the end was satisfying with the Klingon arc being, this massive war that almost destroyed the entire Federation done in 22 minutes.
Yeah.
In the last part of the last episode, with the nonsensical ending.
No.
The stuff is good, but then also, Lorca becoming Trump in 1 second, becoming the most boring character from being a very interesting character.
Yes.
Absurd choices that they obviously And they also gained more episodes. Remember, they gained either 2 or 3 more.
Yes, they did.
Were
It was
late.
about 2. That's right. They filled in an extra couple of episodes.
So,
Didn't they?
considering all that, it's an okay show, but is one of the most expensive, and yet, like, how can you get to that point where you have to do that much extra money wasting?
Absolutely.
You know,
Well,
it seems very strange to me.
yeah. Well, look, I think what we'll do is we're going to come back to this. But let's just finish off. Any other news that you got, Martin? Because, like I said, at the moment it's a bit of a void my end. Anything you want to report?
Right, there's the film. They're going to start filming Obi-Wan.
Oh,
The series,
good. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
Going up now. Ewan McGregor confirms Obi-Wan show will start filming this spring.
Okay, brilliant.
Yes, so that should be interesting. I'm looking forward to that, actually.
Well, I mean, it's funny with going on back to Discovery and Picard, and then you think of The Mandalorian. And to me, The Mandalorian, in its own way, is definitely Star Wars. It just feels in the universe. It was
crafted.
It's just everything about it. I mean,
Beautiful.
I absolutely was blown away by The Mandalorian. So I have to admit that I'm more excited about Mandalorian season 2 than Discovery season 3. But I'm open to Discovery. I mean, hopefully it'll be better than our sort of disappointments. Also, did you say something? I don't know if you've heard this series, Samuel. It's a puppet series in the 80s called Terrorhawks. Apparently, there's a new series of Terrorhawks.
I'm looking at that right now. Yes, there is. Yeah.
So, like I said, that was a series in the 80s. So it's probably something which was before your time, Samuel. But it was.
Well, I mean, I'm a huge Red Dwarf fan, but you know, obviously back in the day, you could only watch what was either on TV or parents had on VHS. So not so much was I alive, it's so much did the parents like it. No, they didn't apparently.
Well, I'm glad you're a Red Dwarf fan.
Terrorhawks was based on UFO, basically. It's UFO remade.
But it's like Jerry Anderson, because obviously Jerry Anderson did. I'd never seen UFO, but I saw Space 1999, which I thought was a good series. Obviously, it's dated, but that's good. So that's good. Anything else from your? I've got nothing much on my end, I'm afraid, this week.
The Daleks are getting an animated series.
Okay. Is it going to be voiced by Nicholas, the guy?
I think so. Yeah, I think he's behind it actually, Nicholas Briggs.
Nicholas Briggs. Yeah. Okay. Well, but it might be all right. I don't know.
And some science, something new. They've confirmed apparently there was another universe before ours.
Yeah, I heard something about that. Apparently there's some Hawking radiation or something.
Yeah.
And apparently it's like an ident that it could be from a different previous universe. So whether indeed that's...
when ours got created, there was one before it.
That's what I mean, the previous one before us, yeah. So...
this. And then when this is gone, there'll be another one. And it'll just keep going on and on and on.
I know. Well, I'm certainly interested in that. I mean, you know, when you get to a bit older in life, you do start to sort of get a bit more philosophical and think about the life, the universe and everything. Not necessarily that the answer is 42.
Well, I'm going to ascend to the next level, I think.
Are you? Are you going to be like an Asgard, are you?
I'm going to ascend.
Not Asgard.
When I'm up there, I'll pop up sometime and give you all the answers to everything.
Okay, well, we'll keep that in mind. All right, I think that's about it, I think, for the news. Brilliant. All right, let's go into, obviously, our focus, which is Discovery, and also a bit more background about Samuel, how you've come to be such a well-known icon on YouTube. Tell us a bit about yourselves. How did you get involved with special effects and Star Trek and also Stargate as well in some of your fan films?
Yeah, so I'm I'm English born and bred, but all English here, which is kind of unusual for my line of work.
Okay, that's interesting.
I always deal with American clients and such. But no, I've been a filmmaker for a very, very long time. I remember I went to America to the Vegas convention in 2008 and then the Stargate Gate World convention in 2008. It was the most amazing holiday of doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
And both were incredible, very special. And in between the two, I was staying with someone in LA while the parents were off doing something else, and he was my cousin, and we decided, hey, let's make a film on our, my phone can take 640p video, sort of. Let's make something.
Let's go for it. Yeah, why not?
Let's go for it. Because I just happened to get the Ronan's gun prop from the Vegas convention.
Oh wow!
And I'm pretty sure I bought it from Scott Nakada, a prop maker who I'm now good friends with, who I've bought loads of things from. But I think I did that a decade and a half ago, but I didn't know, obviously, at the time. Anyway, so I bought that, and I had a prop. Hey, use a prop, and I made this short film. And I came back home. I edited it while I was there, so I obviously somehow knew what I was doing in some small way. And that was my first thing I ever made. And I came back. I remember I was in an English class at school, and I was like, "What am I going to make next?" The bug had hit.
Yeah.
I didn't know what my thing was, and it was absolutely filmmaking. And then from year 10 to 10 of sixth form, so 5 years, I was doing I did a web series. I did most of a feature-length movie. I did 6 audio dramas. I did the school's media department. I led that. Very, very into it, and I kind of learned by doing. And then obviously that passion took me to university to do filmmaking, which I did for 4 years. Which again, I ended up running the Students' Union YouTube department for 2 years as their full-time member. I then 3 months of being at the university, I guess I'm not sure how I got the job. I was a go-getter, and I became a club videographer for 3 years. Filmed some pretty amazing things. Did some wedding videos, which are absolute magical when you film a good wedding. Really magical. Some go-karts, some luxury cars, a whole lot of weird things that helped me buy better equipment, which obviously put me ahead in my studies because I suddenly had better kit. Just pure experience. And then while I was known by people at the university, they had a blue screen, not a green screen, a blue screen. Yeah. And I thought, hey, we've got these props and costumes from Stargate. Let's make a fan film in the summer. I'm going to stay at uni. I might as well do something. I got a couple of actors, and I made what ended up becoming the most viewed Stargate fan film on YouTube, and it still is.
Wow.
I'm pretty happy with.
That's amazing.
While dated, it was an interesting concept of green screen integrating someone into live action Stargate, so putting them into scenes we had already seen but different and new footage. And it took place during the SGU pilot, and it was pretty ambitious but achieved, and again got me hooked in fan films as well. I'll kind of pause there for questions because quite a lot of history. That was a whole thing.
Well, that's fascinating. I mean, I think it's amazing now that you see the production standards on films, but you also see some of the fan productions and what some of these people do, and it's absolutely incredible. It's like recently I saw Ghost Ship, and you did the special effects for that, and I loved it. It was amazing. It was. And it's so amazing. So, because I've watched Trek Yards for a long time, so I saw your name pop up, and I thought, and of course the special effects are fantastic. You got the spinning ships and everything, but it's amazing just how you're very lucky, because I like graphic design and I do sound editing in a more humble way, but I picked up stuff over the years, and it's amazing that I wished that the technology for me had come out about 5 or 10 years earlier when I was at sort of college. And I think that I might have got a bit more involved with stuff now rather than just sort of doing things on a fan basis. But it's amazing because, of course, you did all this. And then 6 years ago, you started doing Trek Yards. How did you meet the captain, Captain Foley?
Yeah, that's what I'd like.
How did that come about?
Start collaborating together. How did that come about? So I'm a massive fan of Trek Yards.
Me too.
Thank you. Very kind. Well, it started with my Star Trek fan film, because the second year of uni I said, well, let's go bigger. Let's do a Star Trek one. It was only 22 minutes, but I didn't quite understand how script writing worked, because I wasn't yet doing that module. And so I wrote a 60-minute script without realising it. But hey, ambition, when you haven't got the skills at the time, you can't realise it. But my filming skill, which is obviously what I originally had, was at the point where I could do it. So the footage was actually really good. Just the technical stuff wasn't, but then 5 years later, I was able to then realise the full ambition. So I had this Trek fan film with every single era. It still has never been done. I don't know how. It's been 5 years, and I was a couple of years into that. I was back from university at my house. I was editing that, and I was, editing, as you guys may know. Less so with sound, I'm sure, but if you do video editing, you kind of need something on the second monitor. If you're just doing like graphical lining stuff,
you need more. Yes, you need more of a source to look at while you're doing it and stuff like that.
Something else, take your mind off it, because 8 hours of tedium. And so I watched lots of videos. I watched debates and things, and at the time, as you happen to do, I came across this guy called Stuart Foley, who called himself the captain for some reason. Very odd, very odd.
Okay.
And he was doing movie reviews, and I think he was only up to Star Trek 3, but I watched Star Trek 2, his one, which was him with his phone filming his TV, him in front of it.
Just talking, the most basic you could get, basically, right?
Yeah, but he genuinely knew things I didn't know, and as being quite an encyclopedia myself, I was like, okay, this is interesting. And so I don't think I subscribed straight away, but I looked at his other 3 reviews, and I was like, okay, cool. And he happened to mention on one of the videos, it's his birthday that week, pretty much.
Right.
And I was getting quite burned out on my own effects because, and obviously slower PCs even take long to do. And so I was like, you know what, I want to do something fun. So I'll make him an animation. This is what I do. I'll make an animation. It's their birthday. Do something else, something different. So I made him a simple, well, relatively simple, a TOS shuttle flying through the words Captain Foley, through the O, next to.
I think I remember seeing that. Yeah, I think I saw that at some point. Yeah.
And he was bloody thrilled. I knew that YouTube channels, the more you put into, the more you get out of them. And I knew that if he had some animations, it could help. Yeah. So I made him one out of the blue. He loved it. He thanked me. I want to thank Samuel from the UK. Like,
hey.
And that was great. And then, honestly, I think like 4 months passed. Because it was a one-off. I think he wanted some more animations, which we kind of worked out a deal on. And then at a certain point, that certain unknown time, we decided to talk on Skype, and then that original Skype chat, I remember I was in my front room and I'm on my phone, he was in his garden, and we came across, let's make a show, and what show we'd want to see, and it's about ships, and there's massive mutual love, and still don't know exactly how and why the insanity, but it did. And then, because I came from a massive production background where I was doing weekly shows from my university, and before that, it's such an inbuilt thing. It has to be weekly, Saturday, same time, edited, graphics, animation, because no one did animation and no one did weekly. This was much younger YouTube, where there was obviously vlog stuff, but there wasn't really all these viral, science fiction. Let's talk about this week and this. And so we started, and obviously it's quite a humble beginning, but I knew what we needed to do, we just were not experienced enough to get there. But within 2 months, we'd already booked in Doug Drexler, Rick Sternberg, Andrew Probert, and John Eves. We made the connections with them, and then we did Indiegogo at the start of the year after to get a better PC, because the amount of stuff I had to do, and they were the promotion for that. And we just kept making these videos with these amazing guests. And because obviously I treated it in such a way that it needs to be as professional as I can be, and Stuart is a private investigator, so his sense of knowledge, expertise is I need to treat this properly. And then we just kept evolving and going. We've had obviously hard times as YouTube keeps changing, and we have sort of tried to change a little bit, but the fact is we want to be informative and interesting. It's hard to change that much too much. And then with the new shows coming out and do live streams has really given us that second bit of life, because ad revenue sucks.
Yeah,
but that
exactly.
allows us to keep
the super chats and stuff. No, I think it's very good that you've done that. I mean, we've never done sort of like super chats and stuff on our channels yet. Maybe at some point we will in the future. I mean, like I said before we recorded this today, that I'm much more comfortable on the audio than I am on the video. But I know that Marty's talking about doing a stream on Friday, aren't you? After we've seen the first episode of Discovery.
I'm going to need emails actually, because I've got to get the Zoom. I'm going to contact Trek Family. It's just that I'm waiting for my friend. He's in Florida, she's in New York, and then there's somebody in Canada.
That's fine. I'll send you all the information.
I've got to work out the time of...
I mean, Trek fan said he wants to do it about 10 o'clock our time, so because obviously in America it would be about lunchtime or something. So that's fine. I mean, if he hears this before Friday, then obviously we'll have to work out what's best for him. But go back to what you're saying. It is interesting how with your live streams, you do quite a lot of live streams, and the super chats, you see them coming in, which is really good to see. But you two have really invested so much of your time over the years, and you've built something incredible. And it really is. If you want to know any information about a starship which has appeared in any of the series, you could just type it in YouTube under Trekyards, and it'll be there somewhere, whatever class or whatever. And it's amazing just how much information that you've given the fan base out there.
Interviews, we've covered all the main ones with the people that designed them.
Yeah, that's the most incredible.
Another thing, I'm a big fan. A couple of years ago, I think I contacted you on Facebook. I said, could you do the Liberator on Blake 7? And you did.
Oh, good.
You did the Liberator on Blake 7. A couple of weeks later, it was there.
Yeah, your fleet guards.
I sent an email to doing the Liberator. And I loved the video because you really went into the detail of the Liberator.
I love that. I love that.
Dug up all the information. I loved it.
It's like... I was going to say on my wall, what I've done was I've got a load of 3D printed starships. I managed to get on something called Thingiverse. There's loads on there. And what I've done is I've looked at a lot of your episodes, which give the specific sizes of each ship, so that when you print them, they actually are in proper ratio. So, you know what I mean? I know it sounds like sort of like not that most interesting thing, but it's great that you're a resource for things for people wanting to do stuff out there. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Well, I'm certainly super proud, especially of the scale chart, especially with fleet yards and stuff, because no one does as much 3D as we do. Nobody. And to see things in context together, especially when we have things like From Stargate and Firefly and Battlestar, where we are not using the online bullshit scale charts where someone made it up at one point and it's sort of followed through, and there's loads of those. We use the original, untarnished, which means when you see these things, like, oh my god, really? And that's a great reaction.
So do you have to really investigate to get all the specific information from where do you look for your basic resources for the correct info rather than looking at all these?
I load the model.
Oh, I suppose you do, and then you can work out from the model that I see what you're saying.
Well, one of the caveats of using the original models is I don't give the exact meterage,
right?
Because it's not the point of them. But to see them in context, I think, is enough of an amazing thing. And especially with Stargate, I mean, they butchered those numbers because they did an official magazine, and the company did not talk to the production company at any point about the scale or getting a 3D model. So every single model you see, and they've got beautiful pictures in their entire magazines. They're all new models. And therefore they just invented their scales, and they're all wrong, except Destiny, because that was the last thing they ever made. And that was when they actually did ask them. And those are the official model, and we did a really interesting scale video, and it's just like, if you base the scale of Prometheus off the official scale, one 6-foot man is 4 windows of scale.
Oh, wow.
So clearly that scale is wrong.
It's not right, exactly.
Whereas the scale I have, guess what? Perfect.
Exactly, fits exactly right.
It's
strange because it's like every time I put on Star Trek Insurrection, saying that, I always look at the deflector dish of the Enterprise and always remember you saying how terrible the scale is, and not the scale, the resolution of the dish is compared to. And I was thinking that every time that comes on, I think he's right. It's really crap, and I never noticed that until I saw Samuel Cockings on Trek Yards.
I've done so much 3D that I can tell some stuff. I can really see, and especially with older Trek, especially
That's
if it's
the nature of your work. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's funny when because obviously I do some audio mixing and stuff, and you can always see like when something's badly dubbed over. And it really stands out. And of course, when I was younger, it's all fine. And of course, you can tell when the way that it's just voiced over, and you can tell that the mic is slightly closer than it is when they're recording it in the studio. It's just what you learn and pick up through technology and stuff like that. So
we just watched a TNG episode, and there's a scene. It's literally the last 2 or 3 we watched, and the scene where Gates McFadden walks with Patrick Stewart for a good 45 seconds, walk and talk, and I can hear it's entirely dubbed. It sounds wrong, but she does an incredible job lip syncing it.
Yes,
I mean it's really good, but it also sounds like they did not blend it very well at all. But it's really well lip synced.
They really try. Yeah, exactly. It is.
They're normally not the best, but that one is especially good.
Yeah, I mean it's such a shame about the fact that so far we've never got a HD copy of Deep Space Nine and Voyager. That's the one thing I'm waiting for.
Have you seen the person that's done some of that? He's brought it up to edge. There's like clips, and somebody edited it all up with the Blu-ray and stuff.
Yeah, I mean I've always thought
it's quite impressive, and the Voyager.
I've always wondered why fans can't actually do the remastering of the special effects. They obviously get paid for it, which would probably be a lot less than their own studios. Whereas people like you, Samuel, could actually be involved. I mean, surely they would save themselves money. I mean, it would be a hell of a lot of work, and it would obviously involve a big team. But I don't know why they couldn't do that.
I'll let you in a little secret. I was a guest at FedCon. You know FedCon, Germany?
Yeah, Germany. Yeah, I've been to that years ago. Yeah,
I was a guest last year. I did a panel on Babylon 5 and Star Trek VFX, and my co-host did my co-host, my German friend, did half of it. I did the other half.
Right.
And as an exclusive, because everyone wanted, I actually remastered several shots from Voyager at the panel, and so I was able to show world exclusive stuff with some Borg ships and some Voyager stuff. So I did some Voyager remasters, and it takes a little bit of time, but it does look a lot better if you HD it up. It's not.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the entire. I mean, it's a lot to get into. I haven't even got Discovery really, but I do know the whole story about why and how and who. But it's definitely a shame.
The thing is, Next Generation didn't sell that well, did it? The Blu-ray sets when they came out, not a lot.
It's at the end of the Blu-ray cycle.
Yeah, well, Blu-ray, like I said, it was becoming a thing of the past now. I mean, the only thing about the Next Generation I wasn't that mad about is that there were different studios. The studios that did season 2 and 4 were different from the studios that did seasons 1, 3, 5, 6, and 7. And you can tell some of the ship scenes, like the Enterprise looks a lot brighter in season 2, for instance, than it does in season 1. What did you think about the effects houses that did it, Samuel?
I mean, we all know the original team that did the main ones. They did the best job. Although I know guys that worked on the season 2, which is arguably the least good season.
Yeah.
And even though that one had arguably the most interaction with Mike Okuda and the original guys that worked on TNG, ironically in VFX department, but that was micromanaged by people at CBS and that company in odd ways where they would just have things override. Right. So even though the team were aiming for more, people in the pro pipeline were actually lowering the standards, and they didn't do enough grain removal, and there's a few things that do let it down. I mean, it's definitely a shock to go from season 2 episode 26 to season 3 episode 1. You're like, oh damn.
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
It's cleaner and crisper, but now knowing the team, it's not actually their fault. As with, you can't blame the people on Discovery for designing the Klingon ships. It's like they were told to. I mean, Brian Fuller, and they told them to. So what do you expect?
I mean, obviously we're going to. I think we should sort of start to move towards the Discovery side of things now. But
I'll have interest. What do you guys think of the origin story of me and Stuart then? Since
I think it's brilliant. I think it's interesting.
I found it fascinating. I like it how you sort of like watched his video and sort of like contacted each other.
Well, it's a bit like us too, yeah. I mean, Martin, what he did was he did a review of the last episode of Star Trek Continues, which we were big fans of, and his upload was quite big. I think it's about 25,000 views, and there wasn't a lot of reviews out there at the time, we were both blown away by it. And then, of course, he started doing this live stream on Sundays, and we started getting to know each other. And before we know it, we've been doing this for nearly a year. So, it is strange how sometimes something just happens which is out there that catches your attention, and then you get to know each other. And then before you know it, you're doing a podcast, or as you are, things like that.
Samuel, I think what you and Captain Foley have done is absolutely.
Absolutely.
Honestly, I've watched it. I watch it all. Yeah. I used to get in them when you release a new video with notifications, and I were on it. Because your ship charts and all that, and
drunk yards. Don't forget drunk yards.
Drunk yards. And I just sat there, and it's like I'm absolutely hypnotized by when you're going into detail of all the ships and all that, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know that.
So I'll have to ask you, what are you two planning for, obviously, Discovery Mandalorian? I assume you're going to be doing live streams, reviews of the new episodes. What have you got planned?
Yeah, I mean, unlike other channels, we don't just do talking head stuff, as you guys know. Which, nothing against it. It's just the reason we have a reasonably strong channel in terms of viewership and at least massive support for the channel is because we built it up with actual edited content first. We didn't just start as one of those many talking heads and then suddenly go viral and then just do talking heads and live streams. I find it a bit of a cop out.
Yeah.
That's okay. What I mean, compared to what we used to do. So even though I got to film it and release it on Friday, we still do a fully edited review with full graphics. And as I said on our last live stream, even though other YouTube channels have got called out by CBS for using them, not to say they allow us.
No, you're very clever. You do still scenes. You don't do any live footage, and you don't do all. I've seen that, and I've seen what you're coming from.
Yeah.
You're doing it in a way. You could show the episode, but you could do it in a way which will fit in with the CBS rules and YouTube rules, and I can see that.
Even though we show hundreds of images theoretically, but we do graphs, we do comparisons, we're really adding something to the conversation. Because if we say, oh, this looks like this, well, let's see a side by side. That's the informative thing. So the edited content is really important. So that'll be for Mandalorian. It'll just be the live streams because that's more for us than for the big audience, and that's fine. But yeah, for Discovery, it'll be the same as always. It'll be weekly editor review, which will be 40-minute recording session, put down to 25 the best bits, as it were. A full live stream, which is a scene by scene, and again, no one does that because sometimes, as we always say, the good and the bad. You can have a generally bad episode, some incredible scenes, and then some amazing visuals inside some scenes. So you should give credit to it because there's how many dozens of people worked on this episode. It's not just the director, the editor.
No, it's a whole production, and
So
there's
scene
so
by
many people
scene,
involved.
we love because we see the smallest things. And with the Lower Decks episode where they go to the bar, the planet of the Klingon, like we were seeing things that you can't see when the frame is a one frame. But when we have the still, you're like, oh my god, that detail.
Yeah, and
that
you spot
detail.
it. Yeah, you see every single detail. I mean, how do you feel about some of these really negative Trek YouTube sites? I mean, there are one or two which are very popular, have high subscriptions.
Oh yeah, well more than Trek Yards.
And that's what I was about to ask you. I mean, because you make this not to slag off Star Trek. You can be critical of an episode. You can be fair and balanced, which is what I've always liked about you two. But you get some of these channels where they just go after everything and shred it to pieces. And I'm just amazed how popular some of those sites are because, as a Star Trek fan, you got to take the good with the bad. But, they just sort of go after these things without even any other reason than just to be negative. And I don't like that.
Well, I mean, all I can say is good for them for creating such a viewership. Good for them for making a monthly income.
That's
They make
true.
more than us with more views and less work. And hey, good on them. I'm not going to agree with how they do it.
No,
but,
and
everyone has an opinion.
I just think it's good the way you go.
Can I don't know if I can mention this, if it's legal or not. What's your thoughts on the accent house thing?
It's complicated.
That's what I'm saying.
I know every party involved, so it's one of those things.
Yeah.
I'm one of the more neutral people, as you can imagine, all the fans.
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course you are.
You know. I mean, do you want an answer? Or you gonna...
No, I just wondered what you thought. 'Cause I'm quite a fan of the 20-minute thing they did, which I thought was absolutely marvellous.
I mean, it's the greatest shame, isn't it?
It's such a shame. I would love to have seen the full version of it,
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it was just mismanaged by people that weren't up to it. But I mean, it's a fan film that went too high.
Yeah,
and if
it
they
went
just
too
tried
much.
to go one step lower, would have been fine. But you can't know how it's too far until you go that far, and they were the one that went too far. So the biggest shame. But people say the fan film universe is over. There've been more fan films released after the guidelines. Almost.
You can still do stuff in guidelines. You just have to do it a different way. You can
It's
still work it out.
30-minute sections now, and
Isn't it 2:15? Isn't it 2:15?
Well, I mean, it can be. People have released longer, shorter, more varied. I mean, it's an incredibly diverse set, and I working for the best ones. I think, as I think I am, there's been incredible stuff. Because whereas in the olden days, it was you kickstarted. In the olden days, you were I self-fund it, no one watches it, I move on.
That's
the next one, I watched it. Then it became Kickstarter, and I was in the first round of Kickstarters unsuccessfully, like a little bit of money, but it still was there. Then it became. We know people, we got talent, and the celebrities drive, which is fine, brilliant. I've seen Michelle Nichols, awesome. But now you've got to actually raise some money via Indiegogo as a budget, but you're looking at 10 to 15 grand or lower, which is a meager budget. But each person doing things are filmmakers first, who have their own camera. There might be $30,000 worth of camera, but it's theirs, then how to use it.
Yeah.
And so it's made it, everyone's doing. I said that we're in the golden age of mid-level fan films, where most of them are pretty damn good.
Yeah.
It's not as ambitious, but we're all filmmakers making them, so you get a much higher bar. Just can't be as ambitious, but that's a good thing in a way, because it means we all get them made quicker. So we're in the golden age, I would say.
Well, let's just sort of finish with focus on our Discovery for the last 5-10 minutes, I think, because obviously, I'm sure you've got to get back to work soon as well with what you're doing. So let's just sort of ask first impressions about Discovery. I remember when I saw Captain Foley's first reaction after seeing the first episode, and he sort of came on screen and he sort of sat down, and he looked like he'd been hit over the head with a bat or something. He was completely shocked. How are you, Samuel, when you first saw Discovery episode 1?
Well, I was really excited until I saw it.
Okay.
I still remember that beautiful visual of the nebula with the words, and it pulls out and you see whatever the guy's name is, the Klingon. You're like,
the Klingon, not Koloth or something. Yeah, another one. I mean,
and you're just like, oh,
okay.
I mean, it's the thing is, right, and this is obviously a retrospect thing, but Discovery is not made for Star Trek fans. It is. No. It was made for.
I think it's an interpretation of Star Trek. It's not actually getting what it's about.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's there for people. If Star Trek fans watch it, sure. But I think same with the 09, and obviously it's some of the same teams, the same companies, literally.
Sort of more mainstream.
Yeah, if they can get more people to watch Star Trek, it'll last longer. Problem is, they then wanted those people to pay for all access, CBS, on a monthly service. Problem is, if you're coming in to watch Discovery without having seen any of Star Trek, why the hell would you pay money to watch Star Trek if you don't like Star Trek?
Yes.
Whereas Lower Decks is for Star Trek fans, by Star Trek fans, and I think those
and it works. And it works.
And it works.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
But it's also well-made storytelling. So if you take Discovery as not made for Star Trek fans, then it's a very simple, well-made production, poorly made story with a bad set of scripts, poorly designed characters, in a story with lots of plot holes. But if you watch it in one long sitting, you don't think about it and you just enjoy it. But
So it's more like a generic science fiction series with the name Star Trek sort of stuck on it, even though that's not quite what it comes across as being.
Somewhat. Yeah, it definitely doesn't have any of the main values that you'd want a Star Trek. But fundamentally, it could have all the weird art design choices if the stories were good and the characters were good.
you can do it in a way that you can explain it.
But you've got to ask, why has every character in the show been radically altered since the start of the show?
Yeah.
In season 2, because none of them work, because they realise they don't work. Which is, hey, you can have that, but maybe if you also made the designs more applicable. Because the fact is, if Brian Fuller, who originally had the concept, says to the guy designing Klingon ships, "We don't want them to look like anything we've ever seen before," you wonder why they don't like Klingon. And when he tells John Eves no cylindrical nacelles for an era that has exclusively cylindrical nacelles, you wonder why the ships don't look right.
Yeah, that was the basic premise.
And so it was always going to fail in terms of being a good Star Trek show. It's possible as a show, but I do not want to watch Star Trek season 1 again. There's nothing in there for me. The mirror stuff is fun, but saying 4 episodes out of 13 out of how many tens of millions is kind of sad. Season 2 is better, but it gets progressively worse as the initial set of showrunners leave. Kurtzman takes over. The plot clearly gets radically changed. Plot holes start to sink in, and I said every episode. And they're very clever with this. After every episode, the teaser was great, and it made you think, "Ooh, next one we're really going to get you." But most of those episodes were unfulfilling, and so every week I said, "If the setup is amazing and the payoff is great, brilliant. If the setup is amazing and the payoff is bad, all the setup fails."
Yeah.
And the final 2 episodes, while visually kind of cool, so many plot holes that to get past the writing stage, past the director stage, and then onto set, you're thinking, wow,
how did it get there? Yeah, how did it sort of end up like that? Yeah,
I have to say, when I've watched it, I've never gone back to it. I've watched one season.
I like Star Trek when it's more of a standalone story. You can sort of delve into it. I have gone into I've seen the one with Saru when he goes back to his planet.
That's the best episode.
Because also the one where they end up in the Delta Quadrant, I think, with a planet where it has humans on. There's a church, and it's kind of like.
Got to.
I quite like those two. I thought those two were pretty good. I think they're the best.
Those two were early. And that was Frakes directed, and that was that. Everyone said that felt like Star Trek. That episode.
That's the one I'm talking about. Yeah. It did feel like Star Trek, and that's
the Saru one did as well.
Saru, I think Saru is my favourite character of Discovery.
Because he's not at all who he was in season 1. Have you noticed how, since the coming of death, never did anything beyond the first episode, and then he literally lost the power in season 2 because they realised, well, what does that mean? Nothing. Okay, well,
so they changed. They removed the
reset the character. It's hilarious, honestly. It's like Troy. I can both detect emotions and not, but at least they kind of tried to keep using it. And the Saru one's pretty good. It's mostly because of the acting, I think. But the last scene, the alien creature ships are awful. Yeah. They're like the size of a Borg cube and obelisks that do nothing. They're very confusing.
Yeah.
The idea of the alien race is a bit odd, and their final confrontation with it is in a blatantly redressed transporter room that looks awful with an alien that doesn't. How is this alien race spacefaring? Doesn't quite make sense. And you just think, well, we just reset Saru because the show didn't like him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's reinterpretation of the character, as you say.
Discovery should have been. I always say, skip season 1. Don't bother. Start with season 2.
I agree. Season 2. If you just go into the season 2, I think it gives you a much more positive impression of the whole series as a whole. I think. I agree about that.
1 or 2 goes, because if you start thinking about it, the plot holes, especially at the end, are absolutely horrendous because they obviously rewrote it. I mean, they had not planned to go into the future until near the time they filmed it. And so obviously, if you you know what I mean, it's such a radical shift.
So it makes you wonder what's going to be happening with season 3. Obviously, it's going to be set in the future.
It'll be the best season.
I mean, I think it's going to be. Yeah, but that's what I was wondering. I mean, it's a series, as far as I know, which wasn't rewritten as it was filmed.
Same showrunner, same budget. Yeah.
So that's already an advantage. So you're I don't know. I mean, like I said, the problem with CBS, apart from this, Lower Decks, which I actually haven't been impressed with, but with Picard and Discovery, it has been more of a build-up and let down. So I think with season 3...
I felt very let down with Picard.
Yeah.
Especially the last
3
one.
episodes, there was an amazing story arc.
Yeah.
And they just binned it. There was the whole Romulan conspiracy and the robot thing and all that. It was, and then suddenly when we got episode 8, it just went down the toilet. It's like they just rushed everything, and it just killed it for me.
When you can sense a rewrite, when
you
you
can
have
sort of
8
tell.
episodes of build up, and it's like, oh, we're gonna, like I say, I mean that ending should have. They had 3 seasons worth of storyline. They just ended in 1 episode. I mean, the thing is, those robots who are galaxy spanning. Do you really think once they're called, they're not gonna? If they're not attacking the galaxy in season 2, episode 1, because guess what? They know exactly where we are, who we are, how we are.
Well, precisely, and they're more advanced than what we are as well.
I mean, they are the villains of season 2 from episode. That is season 2. Oh no, they're going to ignore it. They're going to completely ignore it. They're going to ignore Picard's whatever. It's shocking. It really is.
It is such a shame.
And all that about Data wanting to die and all that. That annoyed me. The whole death thing with Data and.
I was actually I was very stupid because when I saw the scene with Data in this waiting in this area, I actually thought it was a dream. I didn't know it really was some sort of conscious essence of Data, who eventually expires his existence or his consciousness.
And then Picard becomes a Cylon.
Yeah, he becomes a Cylon. Yeah, exactly at the end. So,
which Patrick didn't even know about until almost the day of filming.
Oh wow!
Did he know that?
As soon as you realise that, you're like, wait, what?
Well, didn't they consult him? Didn't they give him more information?
Well, he was meant to be one of the helping scriptwriters, but clearly their changes throughout the entire season meant that he didn't even know where they were going.
Because he's a producer, isn't he?
If he signed on to a plot at the start and it didn't go that way,
maybe it was more the money he was looking at rather than the story. I don't know.
I've met Patrick twice in his house, and a lovely chap. It wasn't about the money.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, money combined with a good story, and then once you're signed on, if they change a story, that's their.
I think you're right. I think he was definitely. I mean, he's very proud of Star Trek, and although he's wanted to do other things, I agree he would want to do something with such an iconic character that he created.
What's a sad thing that I saw? Obviously that. I always refer to the spin of the active shows. There's an interview where Marina Sirtis is talking about, I believe, Insurrection on a press junket, like it's an old YouTube video, and she's like, "Oh, it's our best movie yet. Is it better than Insurrection? It is. It's better than First Con. Oh yeah, it is absolutely." And there's a hard cut to her 9 years later at the convention saying, "Oh, it's a bit shit, wasn't it?" Yeah, it really was. Because then you think about Jonathan Frakes on the official Star Trek thing saying, "You know what? I think it was Patrick's best performance." And we cut from season 1 end of Picard to a TNG episode, and we're like, fucking hell, he is much better in this than he was in Picard. And so for Frakes to say that, you're thinking, mate, I know you're one of his best friends. Yeah. He is so much less good in Picard than he is in TNG. The acting level. I mean, yes, he's acting different things, but the level is not at all there.
So why do you think it's got lost in the process? What's happened to that?
Which?
Well, Patrick Stewart's in his betrayal in Picard that seems to be not quite as iconic as his Next Generation days. What do you think is it that's not quite there for him anymore?
That's the story.
It's just basically the story rather than the actor.
It's the writing. Yeah.
I mean, if I was the show, I would have episode 1. I would have had first scene, an epic scene with Romulus, whatever. And cut. Picard is now an ambassador in full uniform, looking great, talks to delegates, and he gets called back into duty. He's proud, he's strong, but he's shown to be less good than he was in the old days. Maybe his memory's going, maybe he's whatever. And his son and his daughter look after him or help him, but they're not. He's got less close to them because he knows he's ill. Have him be a strong leader who's flawed, rather than be a weak man. And there's even at this moment, I don't know if you recall in episode 2, I believe. No, it's actually 1, isn't it? Because Picard is a great show for a weekly, because there's so many, this thread, this potential.
Yes, yeah.
But when you watch it again, you realize none of those meant anything. It's the simplest story. And I did a rewatch binge. I was like, oh my god, this is all just window dressing. There's nothing here. There's a moment in episode 1 where Daj blows up, and it's a really good moment.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
And you see Patrick Stewart Picard get blown halfway across the room from a massive explosion that vaporized a lot of stuff.
Like a Marvel hero or something.
Waking up on his sofa, completely unharmed.
Yeah, that's right.
And
it's like,
me and Stewart both said, this is the moment. This is a dream. He has now been taken. This is now a hallucination. Because obviously they're not stupid enough to have him go through this.
Yeah.
Because we were going to
Yeah.
cut to a moment where, episode 9 it's revealed that Beverly was in the room and she healed him. And while he was unconscious, he was ill for 3 weeks, and she healed him. And there's some secret, like, we have to make sure he's okay and doesn't know about this. But then you watch, it's like, oh no, he was just fine. And it's like, I know modern medical technology, but I'm sorry, an 85-year-old blown that far, his back's going to get broken.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. He was like a superhero, wasn't he?
He wasn't even treated.
No, it was just like moved on. That's it. That's the last scene. That was a visual.
I think my favourite bit in Picard was when he was on that planet, on the Romulan planet, and he walked into the barn. He got the racist
He chopped
sign,
his head off.
and they just dropped it on the floor. That's Picard to me. That was like,
Really, being being an aggressor to forcing conflict, and then he got that guy killed.
And he's 85.
No, that's not what he's about. As you say, he was about a person who would negotiate. He wouldn't be going in there. Yeah, it's a different
What do you think
characteristic.
was going to happen? Like, he's actively causing a fight and then got the
Yeah,
guy
that's
killed.
true. But it's just that he's stand against stuff like that, which is quite ingrained into his character, isn't it? But you are right. I mean, it was somebody would have shot him or just beaten him up, really. If he did.
But he had no exit plan. Didn't even know how long. It's like if you're you've got a minute to go beam off the planet, let's piss people off just because.
Just because you're doing it, and that's the end of. That's the whole. Yeah, I know what you mean.
And what's sad is that the basic Romulan storyline of the evacuation is a cool idea, but they dropped it by the end. Like the whole idea of refugees, that went nowhere. It did nothing.
And it should have been a sort of ongoing thing. They shouldn't wrap it up in just that's it. I mean, it's a situation which is always going to be part of the Federation, 24th century or 25th century, as it's about to turn into, with this huge amount of refugees from a destroyed solar system.
Empire, an empire.
Yeah.
Well, solar system, because the Empire's fine, just the main planet.
It's the main.
Romulus and Remus, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know if you guys noticed, or if you knew about this, but again, it feels like a disjointed story where they change as they went, which does happen normally, can happen. But episode 1, 2, and 3 was originally episode 1 and 2, and they were told make it into 3 parts, so they had to pad out it, which means they had to remove episode 3 from the running or move 3 to 4, 4 to whatever. And then Nepenthe with Riker and Troy, they invented that episode out of nowhere. So
I heard about that. They filled it in, didn't they, or something?
So you had 10 episodes, 2 of which got yanked from the order, replaced with 2 episodes that were completely bonus, that didn't actually affect the main storyline. And then you wonder, well, you can't just remove an hour and a half of the content, pad an hour and a half in, and have it still flow. That's a lot of content. 2 full episodes.
Well, I mean,
Wow.
it's interesting to think about what hopefully they'll be writing things better for season 2.
I mean, the pandemic gave them a extra year to write it.
Well, I was wondering that. I mean, it sounds like we don't want to say anything good about this terrible pandemic, but it may actually shake things up a bit for the fact that they've been more confined. They can sit down because they can't do anything else and write, hopefully, a better story for if it's filmed next year. So
and all the 3D assets not a week before, as they did in the final episode of Picard. Yes.
Actually, I was wondering that as well.
What's your thoughts on the Strange New Worlds? Do you think they're going to get it right with that? With the Pike series?
I mean, I called it out that they're never going to make the Section 31 show. That was obviously just...
I'm not interested in that. I'm really not bothered about that.
I mean, it didn't even have any staff, any season order. He just said it because they wanted to make it, and it's been 3 years and it's not been made forever.
I'm not bothered about that at all.
Strange New Worlds is a great idea, and I was at FedCon with Anson and Ethan, and hearing them on stage, obviously they want to do the episodic classic Trek. The only problem with that is, if you're doing Strange New World with those cast, it has to be in the Discovery version of the timeline, which means even more TOS destruction, because if that goes on, because you're only at 4 years from TOS at this point. Well, if it goes 5 seasons, and now you've got literally TOS and them at the same time, like they're not going to undo their own art design to replace with TOS, but that's what they need to do. So you're only going to break the universe more by doing it.
Well, you guys call it the Discoverse, don't you? You also think it's like an alternate. Do you feel the same as that?
I have to be technical, because once you say that, then you can't judge them to the same standard.
Right.
They say they're prime canon, so every mistake they make, I can call them out for that. Every hologram, every alien that's wrong, there's a race in the Federation that isn't in the Federation. It's like, well, that's wrong.
Yeah.
It might look cool, but it is wrong. If it's an alternate, do whatever you want. So I'm more hold them to account. But Strange New Worlds has the best chance of being good, especially with the cast. And again, I'm not Anson, but it needs to be different writers. and you restart the show with a 50% the same art design, 50% back to TOS.
They could do a compromise. They could do a compromise.
Yes.
Half and half. Yeah, I think
you go
I
year
could
in the
see that
future,
working.
You have an Enterprise refit. It's mostly TOS with more details. You change the bridge a bit.
Yeah.
The only reason the TOS, the Discovery Enterprise bridge, had a corridor in it is because Kurtzman said, "I want to walk around the set. It should have a corridor." And it's like, a corridor doesn't fit on the bridge of the Enterprise.
Exactly.
But it did it anyway. And so
I was so surprised about that, because when you watch the TOS Enterprise in Star Trek Enterprise in the Defiant episode, which we talked about, it still looks so good when it was filmed in 2005.
Yeah,
and the biggest surprise,
it worked as well. It worked,
and the biggest surprise was they actually changed it for Discovery. I couldn't believe it. Well, that's what, in theory, that's what they're thinking. But although it had Voyager doors for some reason, which were painted red, I don't know why it had that. But I just thought, I was very surprised that was, to me, that was such a slap in the face for long-term fans. Where, as you say, they could have done some more subtle changes if they really felt the need to. I would love to have just been the classic TOS bridge myself, but I suppose that's not.
We've threatened the fans for a while now to do me and Stuart redesign the TOS Enterprise as a modern retake. Like, how could you do it respectfully and yet properly?
Yeah,
I know Stuart's done his. I've yet to do mine because I'm on Sony projects. But
sure.
The idea of actually just simply doing take the same thing but make it modern is easy. It is a canvas waiting to be painted. It's because they don't want to, because it's not for Star Trek fans. Now, like I say, Stranger Worlds, if you had a new balance, if you said, right, Stranger Worlds is, yes, Discovery, but also we are past that.
Yeah.
We're a year in the future, we'll make this refit, we'll make everything a bit more, because I can't imagine that bridge is still standing a year and that many months later. I mean, that's expensive.
I was wondering whether they would just leave it somewhere and wait until the new series was made to save them money.
Because there hasn't been, it wasn't even necessarily commissioned until a certain amount of time. That's one of those weird things about hiring writers.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, good
it's
point.
earlier than it could be in production, but we know they like to promote things that aren't actually being made yet. They want to.
They just want to sort of say, I know what you're saying.
But it could be amazing. They just have to find a new balance. It needs to be different production team. That's the problem. Those guys do their thing fine, but you want it to last longer. You want it to be better. And if you're actually on the Enterprise with the Spock, only a couple of years from TOS, if you don't make an effort to make it more of a balance, what's the point? Unless you're just saying TOS is undone, in which case, okay, that's a shame. You've hurt 50 years for what?
Yeah, that's such a slap in the face. But as you said before, it's not made for us. It's a mainstream series.
It's made for a streaming audience that are going to pay for it. That's what it's.
And they're not going to care about the Enterprise design from.
Well, because it looks cool, and it does.
Yeah, and they're going to say, "Oh, it's going to look too cheesy, looks too dated." Well, I just think it's going to.
Watch me and Stuart's video on it, because we'll make.
I will. I'll look forward to it. Yeah,
definitely.
But there's a subtle thing though that people don't realise, that if you say that the Discovery Enterprise is fully, so say it's fully canon, right? 100%.
Right.
Okay, fully canon. That Enterprise is almost twice the size of the original series Enterprise, right?
That's right.
So it got launched with April, right? Then it got launched with Pike in the cage, and then 3 years later it got refitted to be completely different, twice the size of the ship. Refitted, the same ship though, because they say Enterprise is over 40 years old. It's now twice the size, completely rebuilt, and then 4 years later it gets completely rebuilt, smaller again,
shrunk down.
Refit. Then it gets so that's canon. It gets upgraded, downgraded to be upgraded, looking like TOS before and after, then TOS again. Problem is, if you now erase TOS and make Discovery canon, right? If the Discovery Enterprise is twice the size of the Enterprise Classic, does that mean the refit is now twice the size to match? Because that's just the same ship upgraded. Well, now, if we've seen the A and the Excelsior together, does that mean the Excelsior is now twice the size to match with the Discovery scale? Well, now...
so they could, as you say, in ratio, they could be, so the Enterprise D could be huge, couldn't it?
Exactly. But then you've seen the shots of Enterprise D of the bridge, of all the corridors, you know how big it is. So now we're saying the Enterprise D, with only 1,000 people, is now 5 kilometres. Well, that means a Borg cube is now 10 kilometres. That's
probably like the size of the Enterprise J or something.
People don't realise, if you start to break stuff, you genuinely start to
It's a shame. It's not necessary. They could have, I mean, I will wrap this up soon, but I'll just quickly say that when we got into this, I did think that the series would actually just be a continuation, like from Enterprise, and it would have some new elements, and it was just completely you know, it's like the Klingons were different and the ships and
don't
warp space
get me
was
started
different,
on
and
the Klingons.
it is a shame. I mean, I will keep watching it. I am a Star Trek fan, and I watch it more out of curiosity. I think.
There could be hope. I mean, there could be hope.
Well, what about the
an amazing
CBS?
series.
What about the CBS Paramount merger? Might that affect the production?
Well, I mean, look at Lower Decks. They had
That's true. Lower Decks was fine. Yeah, exactly.
They had actual JJ canon, TOS canon, TNG canon, movie canon, all in the same screenshot,
and it all
at
worked.
that planet, and it all worked. Yeah, and that was like, well, that's never been done, and yet it's there, just gently, just why
So
not?
maybe you know, you never know. I mean, I like I said, I'm a bit skeptical about season 3, to be honest with you, but. I think this has been a really fascinating conversation with both of you, and I really appreciate your time, Samuel, and of course Martin as well as usual.
Thank you.
Well, let me just say, on season 3, I think it will be the best season because it'll be the least Star Trek season. It'll have no link to canon because it doesn't have to. All the canons will be improved because they'll be reset again, and they'll just have their own fun. Which means it'll be basically Andromeda in space again.
Yeah.
It'll be very barely Star Trek, but it'll be probably the best version of itself. Just
it could be,
the least Star Trek.
Exactly. And I think also we're a bit more used to it now after all the changes over the last 2 years.
Yeah. Although I do think we might be seeing like actual classic Klingons. When we saw a Cardassian, it looked bloody great, and a Morn.
We saw a Morn. I was going to say we saw a Morn in the first trailer.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that.
And there's some really nice subtle stuff that we managed to pick up. And we're hoping.
We might see Dax. We might see Dax in it as well.
Maybe.
Well, we might do. We're going to see Trills, aren't we?
We're going to see Trills, yeah. No, there's so much they can do, and I literally said to Anthony Rapp's face what I thought was going to happen, and he gave me this smirk of like, maybe.
Okay.
Right. Because I had a very clear... Because the trailer is so deceiving, but when you take frame by frame and reorder it, you're like, oh.
Yeah, you can really work out what... Yeah, I see what you're saying. Brilliant. Well, I think it's really
positive
interesting.
note to end on.
Yeah, and from what I understand, they're also going to probably announce soon that there's going to be a season 4 of Discovery as well. So it could well be that we've got at least another couple more seasons of that. So thank you, Samuel. Maybe at some point you could come back and we could give us your reaction after the end of Discovery
Well,
that could be interesting.
It'll be very different.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we can sort of talk about how we talked about it before and how it went. So, like I said, it's always a show where you can never predict where it's going to go.
Absolutely.
But hopefully it'll be on a positive note. Right, thank you guys. Samuel, we always leave on a silly song at the end of each show. Now, the last few weeks, I don't know whether you've heard of this guy, and I can't believe you talk about playing another one. There's a guy on YouTube. His YouTube channel is something like X3945. And what he does is he actually creates lyrics to the well-known Star Trek theme tunes and Stargate. So he's written lyrics to The Next Generation, DS9, Voyager, Atlantis, and SG-1.
Are you sure you want to do
You can
this?
either have that or as an alternative, and we'll leave it up to you, Samuel. I found a funny song a few years ago about Patrick Stewart singing about James Corden, I Can See Your Belly. And he was drunk. He was at some sort of convention or something, and someone mixed in his audio and made a funny little song. So, Samuel, which of these particular options would you like to go for?
Well, my face is thoroughly confused and horrified. But I'll be honest, I'm intrigued what the Atlantis one would be because I like that intro a lot.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have nightmares. All weekend. That's my
fine.
life finished.
Well, there's my present to you, sir.
I tell you one thing: when you've heard this guy, and it's hate to admit this, every time I can put on an episode of Voyager, I hear him singing the lyrics to the tune now. And that's real. We're going home. We're going home. It's terrible. Right, we'll leave with Atlantis. Samuel, thank you very much. We'll catch you next time on the Solar One Sci-Fi Podcast. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Stargate Atlantis is real. Then humans, they went there. They fought the Wraith and the Jedi. Stargate Atlantis is real. It's underwater, right where the ancients have left it. Then the humans went there. They fought the Wraith there, and the Jedi. Stargate Atlantis is real. It's underwater.